Good evening. My name is Jason Coe, and I am part of the RSI class of 1985. All right, and I was a counselor in 1986, and somehow those guys survived. I am a clinical professor of orthopedic surgery at the University of Chicago and an adjunct professor in biomedical engineering at Northwestern. It is my honor tonight to present our dinner program, which will begin with the announcement of the NROTC Awards, sponsored by my friend Steve Strong, RSI class of 1984, and my counselor in 1985, for which he can take, and I survived. So the introductions will be performed by Ken Churchill, RSI class of 1984 and counselor 1985, and Mark Horowitz, RSI class of 1987, and many other classes as well. Gentlemen.
I'll do you and then. All right. So apparently the plan tonight is to introduce the person introducing the person giving the awards. So I'm here to introduce Kent. Kent Churchill attended RSI in the first class in 1984. He was then a counselor in 1985. Again, as far as I know, no casualties. He then attended the Naval Academy, where he graduated in 1990, and then joined the Navy as a surface warfare officer and served in Desert Storm. Then he attended Georgia Tech, graduating in 1996 with a master's in science and management with concentrations in computer integrated manufacturing and rapid prototyping. He was then a consultant for Arthur Andersen Advanced Technology Group from 96 to 99, did direct level IT infrastructure from 99 to 2004. He was the CTO at Salus Tax Processing for 2 years, from 04 to 06. Director of IT operations at TSYS Prepaid from 06 to 08. The CIO and chief bottle washer, his favorite title, at Fenrir Boff from 08 to 010. And then 5 years as CTO at Brightwell Payments, and most recently again, CIO and chief bottle washer at Fenrir since 2015. So, Ken Churchill.
Thank you. So as we were getting ready for tonight, Joanne wanted to figure out a way that we could honor the Admiral's impact and legacy. And one of the ideas we came up with over the last year was to have an essay contest for open all ROTC units, where with cash prizes for the best essays for Admiral Rickover's many contributions to science, engineering, and education. And throughout the process, it was winnowed down. We have 3 winners from 3 different units. And here to accept the award is Captain Savageau. He was graduated from WPI in 1991. He's a nuclear power officer. He was a junior officer aboard the USS Asheville. Then he went on to be the navigator of the Toledo, then became the XO of Salt Lake City, and then went on to be the commanding officer of the USS Pittsburgh, all Los Angeles fast attack boats. And he is now in charge of the ROTC units in the Boston area, and he will be coming up to accept the award. The 3 winners who he'll accept the award for: first place, Jason Alexander Bermudez, officer candidate, NROTC State University of New York, Maritime College. Second place goes to Midshipman Second Class Henry Roman, NYC ROTC Battalion. And third place goes to Midshipman Second Class Delaney Bolton, University of Notre Dame ROTC Unit. Thank you, Captain. We might have to do a picture over there by the time.
Thank you very much, Kent and Mark. This evening we are very honored to celebrate the 35th anniversary of CE. And one of the special awards and presentations this evening is actually the Bulgarian Award being presented this evening to Joanne DeGennaro on behalf of CE for Michael Tachev, president of the St. Cyril and Methodius Foundation. Jonathan Gutenberg will be making a brief introduction and then followed by the presentation of the award. Please.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Mr. Michael Tachev, president of the St. Cyril and St. Methodius International Foundation, which is dedicated to improving education for Bulgarian youth. In addition to his role with the foundation, Mr. Tachev is involved with multiple Bulgarian charities and business associations, including the Bulgarian Business Leaders Forum, the Family Private Agricultural Cooperative, and the Bulgarian Charities Aid Foundation. Through his mission in promoting education, Mr. Tachev has helped RSI work with Bulgarian students for over 25 years. So please join me in providing a warm welcome for Mr. Tachev.
Good evening, everybody, and congratulations on your anniversary. I attended the different panels the last 2 days, and I'm really extraordinarily impressed by the word excellence of the Ricoits. We have a similar institution in Bulgaria, which we started on the advice of Joanne DeGennaro, who came to Bulgaria in '92. And I know she practically had to fulfill the will of the Admiral, who wanted the Center for Excellence to assist Bulgaria in the education of secondary school students in science, technology, engineering, and math. At that time already, Bulgaria had 32 mathematical schools, where the training is starting at the age of 11. And during the 8 years in school, these students are selected and talent is identified at an early age and then supported. That is why small Bulgaria is number 3 in outsourcing in the European Union, though in terms of economic development, it's the last one. I have hopes that the students that come to the States, and at one point in Harvard alone, we had supported 48 students. The students that come to the Center for Excellence in Education are enriched by the quality of your records. And I hope that in a small way they enrich the other group too. With these two several words, I'll have the honor and the privilege to announce the diploma awarded to the Center for Excellence in Education, celebrating its 35th anniversary in recognition of its achievements for nurturing careers of excellence and leadership in science, technology, engineering, and math, as well as fostering the relations between US and Bulgaria in the fields of mathematics and computer science, assisting Bulgarian students to become future creators, inventors, and scientists participating in the Research Science Institute. C, the Center for Excellence in Education is awarded with a special sign of the Foundation, and the sign is here. I would like to invite the president of the center, Lady D. It's heavy,
Beautiful, thank you.
and that is,
St. Cyril and Methodius.
yes. You may know that the so-called Russian alphabet was invented in Bulgaria. Cyrillic alphabet, Cyril and Methodius are the two brothers that did
Thank
this. Good. Joanne, I believe you need some help.
All right.
Uh-huh. That would be lovely. You and the center.
I just want to say that in a few words, before Admiral passed away, when we first organized the center, he said, I would like you someday, if you can help a little country, Bulgaria, because they saved the Jews in World War II. I said, Bulgaria, is that part of Russia? I don't even know where Bulgaria is. And he said, I will get you there several times with the State Department, but I had no idea that it would be much after he passed away. But he said, and another reason I know you will want to go to Bulgaria is because they're really Italian. King Boris's daughter, or King Boris married Victor
Emmanuel's
Yes,
daughter.
Victor Emmanuel's daughter from Italy. Well, that did it. So we have had a long and wonderful relationship with Bulgaria and its very fine students, who I think for many years held the record for the gold medals at the academic Olympiads in math and computer science, or math and physics. So thank you very much, Michael. I will cherish this.
The only thing that I would like to avail of the opportunity, Bulgaria is the only country in Europe which, during the Second World War, saved 50,000 Jews. Not a single Jew was sent to the concentration camps. Everything was prepared and ready. Trains were ready, but the church, parliamentarians, the king, at the last moment decided that they cannot let them go in this kind of awful direction. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gutenberg and Mr. Tachev. Our next introduction, and a wonderful guest who it's really a pleasure to see this evening, is Admiral Bob Inman. The introduction will be performed by Dr. Mark Kantrowitz, RSI 1984, and by one of my also former counselors, one of the original RSI from 35 years ago. So.
Admiral Bobby Inman has led a long and distinguished career in service to our nation. Of particular benefit to our organization, he served on the Board of Trustees as chairman he served on the Board of Trustees of the Center for Excellence in Education from 1983 to 2003, and he served as chairman of the board during the difficult period after Admiral Rickover's death. So he helped sustain this important organization. Admiral Inman served in the U.S. Navy from 1951 to 1982. He served as director of the National Security Agency and as deputy director of the Central Intelligence. After he retired from the U.S. Navy, Admiral Inman was chairman and CEO of the Microelectronics and Computer Technology Corporation, MCC, in Austin, Texas, for 4 years, and he served as chairman, president, and CEO of Westmark Systems, a privately owned electronics industry holding company, for 3 years. Admiral Inman also served as chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas from 1987 to 1990. Admiral Inman has been involved in funding several startup technology companies. He serves as trustee of the California Institute of Technology and is a fellow of the National Academy of Public Administration. Admiral Inman is a tenured professor at the University of Texas at Austin, holding the Lyndon B. Johnson Centennial Chair in National Policy. Admiral Inman is one of the smartest people I know. Please join me in welcoming Admiral Inman.
Mark, thank you for those kind words. Admiral Rickover and I retired from the Navy on the same day, 1 July 1982. There was a 20-something year difference in our age at that point. We were the only two non-line officer, four-star officers in the Navy's history at that point in time. A few months later, I got a call from former Secretary of Defense Jim Schlesinger, who told me that Rick was creating the Rickover Foundation to focus on needs in education, and that he wanted me to serve on the board. At that point, I was the only admiral he was asking to serve on the board, and Jim Schlesinger added, "It's your duty to serve." So I came to Washington and met Admiral Rickover's co-founder, Joanne DeJaneiro. A year later, this now is 85, a call telling me from Admiral Rickover that his health was slipping and that it was my duty to be the vice chairman. And a year later, as he was in his terminal stage, I was summoned yet again, this hospital bed, and I didn't understand the conversation. He didn't want something to go on with his name on it that he didn't control. So he wanted that to be stopped. I misunderstood and thought he was suggesting to actually stop the foundation, at which point he got a burst of energy to say, "I thought you were brilliant. That's stupid. What I want you to do is keep it going without my name on it." So we huddled and came up with the title of Center for Excellence in Education. Without his name there to raise money, it was tough. There were a couple of times that I wrote checks for payroll. Now looking out, let no one doubt that it was Joanne DeJaneiro who made this work and drove it to the enormous success that it has. And may I implore you, all stand and salute Joanne DeJaneiro.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Admiral Inman, for those wonderful remarks. We are very fortunate to have had incredible number of people who have volunteered to help serve this wonderful organization over many years. Tonight, it is my honor and pleasure to present our keynote speaker, J. Hamilton Lambert, the Center for Excellence in Education's first chairman of the board and current executive chairman of the board of the Claude Moore Foundation. Mr. Lambert served as Fairfax County executive during a period of tremendous growth and expansion for Northern Virginia and oversaw much of the development in such areas such as Tyson's Corner and reshaped the landscape around the northern part of Virginia and the DC area. He's the only person to have been named Washingtonian of the Year, Fairfax County Citizen of the Year, and Loudoun County Citizen of the Year, as well as being commended on 2 separate occasions by the Virginia legislature. Among other honors, he has been honored as one of the nation's top 2 county executives. He has also been awarded an honorary doctorate from George Mason University. He has been a great friend and steadfast supporter of education in many forums throughout the years, and particularly the Center for Excellence in Education. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, J. Hamilton Lambert.
Good evening. That's about it. Prior to delivering my remarks, I would be remiss if thanks weren't given to the people that made this possible, particularly this event. I'm going to miss somebody, sorry. MIT has been a foundation partner for years. Military personnel that's worked with us, Joanne, the Queen. I'm serious. And the Rickowards, who are here as a result of the Admiral's dream. In the interest of time, I would, because I know it's getting late, ask you on my cue to give everybody one clap. Are you ready? That's it, thanks. You slow up the meeting with about 20% of the time clapping. I think the Admiral would consider this to be an efficient move. The reason I'm here is because Joanne told me. Now, Joanne is someone you do not want to cross. I crossed her one time. She was on the library board of Fairfax County, and I cut the budget severely. And about a week later, I received a present from her wrapped in very nice paper, and I opened it up, and it was a live rat. It's sort of true, Joanne? That wasn't kind. That caused a little bit of stir, but I forgave her. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born at a very early age. And now I've reached middle age. I'm 77 years old. I told my doctor, by the way, he's with me tonight. You all know him as the commander of a nuclear submarine, Jack Cook. He's my personal doctor. I intend to live forever. Still working. A lot of people say, Jay, you're a self-made man. And that made me feel good. And then they'd say, just look at him. Who in the hell would make something that would look like that? Now, to a more serious report on my discussion tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the Center for Excellence in Education and its impact, including the Admiral's initial concepts. Second thing I want to talk about a little bit of time is where does the center and the Rickowards go from here? I've always said in the beginning, God created Rickover. Whether that was good or bad, I'll leave it up to you. But from there on, things began to change. The admiral was what we now today call a change agent. We throw that term around a lot. Eric Hoffler, in his book, The Ordeal of Change, stated, "No one really likes the new, we are afraid of it." I personally believe that Mr. Hoffler was correct, and because the admiral was a change agent with new ideas, many groups and individuals had the status quo so embedded in their personalities and operations, they chose not to accept him. That's my belief. I first met the admiral in 1983 when Joanne phoned me. I was then County Executive Fairfax, County of Virginia. She said Admiral Rickover had heard about our school system and police department and wanted to take a tour. I'd known Joanne from her previous hijinks on the county library board, including the rat deal, but I forgave her and I set it up. I had a brief conversation with the admiral, and he was particularly enamored with my secretary, who happened to be a retired Navy chief. He thought that was great. And I sent him on his way. At the end of the police tour, I received a call from the chief who said the admiral wanted to ride on a motorcycle with one of our motorcycle officers. I pondered that decision, and I told the chief, okay, but if anything happens to him, your ass is on the line. Fortunately, nothing happened. The admiral was very complimentary and happy. Subsequent to that event, Joanne phoned me and said the admiral wanted to have lunch, and this was the beginning of many such lunches and discussions I had with him. On the initial lunch, he quizzed me. For y'all don't know it, I've never went to college. I'm telling you up front. And just quizzed me and quizzed me and quizzed me. I thought I was on trial. So we finally got around. I said, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And he said, I think it was bring young people to become leaders, bright young people, and contributors to society. Now, today the question was asked at one of the panels, what do you think Rickover would have done had he not done the nuclear submarine or the nuclear system? I think he would have taken on education. I think that's where he would have ended up. I think he would have taken it on to try to make it better. The creation of the foundation was primarily funded with about $300,000 from the admiral for his work on the 3 Mile Island project. And the mission was to nurture high-performing high school and university scholars and assist them in pursuing careers in what we now term STEM. Nobody had heard of STEM back in the 80s. After it was created, the board of directors were formed, and I was given a little talk on management out in California when I received an early morning call from the admiral. He told me I was going to be named chairman of the board. I said, Admiral, I don't believe I'm qualified to serve, and said, there are many more trustees more qualified and capable than I. He cursed me out. And then he said, I picked you and you don't have anything else to say, and hung up. Sort of unusual way to take a position of honor. Thus, I began my tour with the admiral. But before I go into my tour, which I think you're going to be interested in, many of you may differ with these comments, and that's certainly your prerogative. And if I offend anybody, I apologize. But I'm old, I can get away with saying anything. I was never in the Navy. I had to mention this to the Admiral on numerous occasions. He would send me written or verbal orders, some such as quit smoking and lose weight. They were not my favorite transmittals. My thoughts on the Admiral, in no particular order, go like this. Like all human beings, he was not perfect. Like many great leaders in both the government and private sector, he generated controversy. He was obsessed with doing excellent work. He was abrasive. He demanded a total dedication of his staff to the job at hand. He was fearful of failure. Fearful of failure. He was dedicated to improving the country's education system, and I've never been as fortunate in my life to have met an individual so dedicated to his job, his country, and to improving education. So therefore, I contend his shortcomings, which we all have, were dwarfed by his contributions. 35 years later, where are we? The foundation has, at its national and international programs, graduated approximately 3,000 students. Is that right, Joanne? 3,000. The RSI programs have been highly successful in China, Israel, Singapore, Saudi Arabia. Got to watch Saudi Arabia right now, Bulgaria, and India. They've operated 3 programs, the RSI Standard Program, USA Biology Olympiads, and the Teacher Enrichment Program. But most importantly, they have an alumni who have great success stories and have been, in my mind, just what the Admiral would have wanted. Have we done a good job, or has Joanne leading us? Probably. Would the Admiral be satisfied? Hell no. He'd still be badgering Joanne and myself with a comment something like, "This is totally unacceptable. Get off your ass and do more. You bunch of slackers." Other than that, it would have been a very gentle conversation. So we all have to do a little bit of that. Now I'm going to give you a few light side times of my experience with the Admiral. You might know it, but the Admiral was a bit frugal. In fact, he never carried anything more than $10 or $20 with him, and his clothes in a paper bag. So when he was engaged to speak to an out-of-town, he would demand, along with his fee, 2 or 3 first-class tickets, which he would immediately turn in for coach and pocket the cash and give it to the foundation, most of it. In the 80s, he was still a recognized celebrity. So when the pilot or a flight attendant checked the passenger list, they would on most occasions put us in first class, in the seats that he had turned in. I never said a word. I said one time, "Boy, this is really nice." He'd just smile and say, "Yeah, and it's cheap too." One time we flew down to Texas to speak at a bankers event. There was a cocktail party preceding it, and the Admiral and I went. There was a gentleman there, 6'6", 6'8", and he was the president of some financial firm, impeccably dressed, beautiful gold tie. As many of you may not know, Rickover wore the standard Navy cheapo that he got at the commissary. Straight black, narrow. That's what he wore for his tie. You could see this fellow was really overwhelmed by meeting the Admiral. So the Admiral said, "Nice tie." The gentleman said, "Thank you, Admiral. I like yours too." Then Ricko sprung the trap on him. He said, "Let's trade." Now, what's the guy going to do? He takes his towel, he gives it to the admiral. The admiral puts on his tie. Remember, this is a 6'8", 6'6", 6'8" guy. The guy walks away, and the admiral turned to me and said, "You know, I get a lot of nice ties that way." That's not the end of it. Now, for those of you knew the admiral, I'm sure you were aware he was relatively short. In fact, he'd have to stand on a brick to kick a duck in the ass. So when he spoke to that group, that tie was below his knees. I never said a word about it. I'll tell you one more. The admiral had a term he used called liberating something. Basically, that was stealing something out of the hotel rooms. We were in Chicago, staying in a hotel, a presidential suite, Water Tower Hyatt, owned by one of his friends, Mr. Pritzker, I believe. So we left, and on the flight home, everything was well till we had a rough landing at Reagan National. The admiral had the window seat, I had the aisle seat. Suddenly, I started feeling something running through my hair. Well, I had hair then, and all over my coat and suit. So I touched it and smelled it, and it was brandy. Now, a lady had put her coat up in our luggage area. She opened it and began to scream at me about her coat smelling like brandy, and it was ruined. And the admiral turned to me and said, "Look out the window, don't say anything." That's pretty tough to do. So I ended up buying the lady's coat, bribing the damn stewardess not to say we had carried on liquor on the airplane, took Admiral in his little brown bag, put it in a black plastic bag, told him to carry it off the plane, and I wouldn't ride home with him. I didn't speak to him for several days. He never apologized, but he did pay me back for the coat. When we look forward in the future, what are our foundation's goals? We need to continue the programs, always keeping the RSI as a leader. We need to continue turning out more potential leaders. We need to do what we can to keep our country a leader and safe. We need to raise more money for our program, and we need to better publicize our programs. Joanne does a wonderful job, but she's not good at publicity. I didn't mean that. I had to say it, but I want to, now for you Rickoids here, I want you to consider some of the Admiral's statements, and these are true quotes. Good ideas are not adopted automatically. They must be driven into practice with courageous impatience. You heard some of that from the panel members. Be ever questioning. Ignorance is not bliss, it is oblivion. I suffer from that. What it takes to do a job will not be learned from management courses. It's principally a matter of experience, the proper attitude, and common sense. None can be taught in the classroom. And the one I like the best, I suggest that this is a good time to think soberly about our responsibilities to our descendants, our responsibilities as a citizen, and to give American youngsters the best possible education. I still believe that very strongly. In my opinion, I'm a little worried about today's youth. I think a lot of them are being affected by a term, I don't know whether I coined it or not, but I call it electronic addiction. I'll be all right. Electronic addiction. That's not an anti-computer or a phone or texting rant. I'm not against those. But it's an observation that today's young people appear to me, in many instances, avoiding personal contact and social interaction. Now, please remember, good things happen when people come together and find a means to work together. There's no good substitute for personal contact and interaction. Men and women made the machines today. The machines did not make us. They're tools that we made. In closing, I'm certain that the nerve that runs from your brain to your butt is saying, enough, old man, enough. And it's right. I've said too much. So in the words of my favorite alien, Mr. Spock, live long and prosper.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert, for that wonderful talk. It's clear why the Admiral chose you to be the first chair of the board. We appreciate your incredible support for the Center for Excellence in Education over these 35 years. Next on the agenda, I would like to invite Professor Shamit Khatru, who is the Wells Family Director of the Stanford Institute for Theoretical Physics and Chairman of the Department of Physics at Stanford. And by the way, RSI 1986. To present the National Medal of Excellence to Nobel laureate Dr. Wolfgang Ketterle. Dr. Khatru.
It's my great pleasure to introduce again Wolfgang Ketterle. He is the John D. MacArthur Professor of Physics at MIT. He received his PhD in Munich in 1986, followed by postdoctoral work at the Max Planck Institute in Garching and the University of Heidelberg. And he came to MIT in 1990, first as a mere postdoc, but the rest is history. His was the first group to realize a Bose-Einstein condensate, a theoretically predicted by Bose and Einstein, but never realized phase of matter in systems of ultra-cold atoms, ultra-cold atomic gases. For this achievement, he received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2001. Even more impressively, he can run a sub-3-hour marathon. He is also an RSI parent. His son Jonas is an alum of RSI 2003, and he now serves on the board of the Center for Excellence in Education. Unlike many Nobel laureates, Professor Ketterle's research has not slowed down after his award. In recent years, he's been very prominent in the physics community for his advocacy of the tremendous potential of cold atoms to realize and probe mysterious quantum phases of matter, including even the Hubbard model, which may hide the secrets to high-temperature superconductivity. It's my great honor to introduce Professor Ketterle.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to say a few words? Well, good evening. I'm really humbled by this award because I see myself mainly as a researcher, and to receive an award for education is really special. I've sometimes said to students and to colleagues, I don't know what good education is, but I know what good research is. And I try to involve my students in research. When I have undergraduate students in my laboratory, I don't give them training projects. I involve them in the real research. They should get their hands dirty. They should share the miserable life of my graduate students. And I feel that this is how I teach them to become researchers. But is it also providing the best education? Well, I am convinced, and this is also part of the rationale for many of our universities, that we want to train students in research. We ask them to do original research for bachelor thesis or PhD thesis, and then we send them out in the world. only the smaller fraction of them are researchers. The bigger fraction of them go to management consulting, become administrators, become high-level salespeople, marketing and all that. But we do think that having engaged them in research is really special. Because as a researcher, you experience that you can make the impossible possible, that you can do something you first thought, I can never do it. And if you do it, it liberates you. It gives you an idea how strong you are, and it helps to walk out in the world with self-confidence. So therefore, I would still say, maybe I don't know what education is, good education is, but I try to provide people with good guidance to research. And, well, that's still why I feel humbled to receive an award for education.
Thank you, Shamit and Professor Ketterle. You've been an inspiration for many of us in this room, and we thank you for your service. At this point, I would also like to call up Dr. Wissam Jaber, who is RSI 2003, I believe, 93, Associate Professor and Director of Interventional Cardiology of the Emory University School of Medicine, to present the International Medal of Excellence to Her Excellency Bahia El Harari. Dr. Jaber.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening. It's an exceptional honor for me to be here tonight in front of this prominent crowd to introduce to you Mrs. Bahia Hariri. Please. Born in 1952 in Saida, Bahia Hariri is a highly active personality in the Lebanese political and social life. She had conducted a long educational and professional path in different fields, from education to civil society, mobilization to women empowerment, and legislative work and sustainable human development. Mrs. Bahia Hariri is head of Hariri Foundation for Sustainable Human Development since 1979, an NGO that is member at the United Nations Economic and Social Council with a special status, aiming at activating the role of the Lebanese citizen in achieving sustainable human development and empowering those underprivileged. Keen on developing critical social issues, especially in education, Mrs. Hariri is a leading example and an active entity in promoting social and human development projects. Since 1992, Mrs. Hariri has been elected a deputy in the Lebanese parliament and became head of its educational committee. From 2008 till 2009, she was also designated as the Lebanese Minister of Education and Higher Education. She is a board member in several academic and cultural institutions, such as Lebanese American University and the Arab Thought Foundation, aiming at supporting social fairness and raising the civil community to the highest standards. Mrs. Hariri's work evolves as well around empowering Arab women. She established, in collaboration with the Arab League and the National Council for Women in Egypt, the first Arab Women's Summit in the year 2000. She was elected head of Women's Committee in the Arab Interparliamentary Union and vice president of the Arab Parliament in 2005. Dedicated champion of women's rights, Bahia Hariri has consistently promoted the status of women in Arab society, campaigning for the adoption of laws protecting women and helping their emancipation. On the international level, Mrs. Hariri was appointed as UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for Arab Women and Girls since 2000, associate member of the Parliamentary Network on the World Bank, member of Board of Trustees at the Arab Thought Foundation, and member of the Women's Advisory Committee at the Islamic Development Bank. She has achieved several honors and awards in recognition of her work, including Lebanese Cedar Award at the level of lieutenant, as recognition of her services in social and cultural fields, the Légion d'honneur awarded by the former French President Jacques Chirac. She also has been presented Doctor of Laws honoris causa degree from Dundee University, another honorary doctorate from the American University of Sciences and Technology, and the Strategic Partnership Award from the Lebanese American University. On a personal note, I want to express my deep gratitude for Mrs. Bahia Hariri and the late Mr. Rafiq Hariri for supporting my education throughout my years. Without that support, I would not be here. I'm also speaking on behalf of thousands of Lebanese who have been touched by your vision and generosity. Thank you very much.
President Joanna De Janeiro, Your Excellencies and members of the board, government representatives and educators, former Research Science Institute and USA Biology, Olympiad participant, distinguished guests, and friends. I am most honored to accept this award, especially at this particular time as the Center for Excellence in Education celebrates its 35th anniversary, and also as the Hariri Foundation marks the 25th year of its partnership with CEE. And now I continue in Arabic. تأسست مؤسسة الحريري لأول مرة في العام 1979 من قبل أخي الراحل الرئيس رفيق الحريري، وكان هدفها تطوير الموارد البشرية في لبنان من خلال التعليم والبرامج الإنسانية، وذلك لتعزيز دور كل فرد في المجتمع للوصول إلى التنمية البشرية المستدامة. إن مهمة المؤسسة حتى يومنا هذا تلتقي مع أهداف مركز التميز في التعليم، وهي رعاية وتطوير طلاب المرحلة الثانوية والجامعية للتفوق والقيادة في العلوم والتكنولوجيا والهندسة والرياضيات. وتحقيقاً لهذه الأهداف يوفر مركز التميز في التعليم ومؤسسة الحريري على حد سواء البرامج للطلاب من أجل تعزيز إمكاناتهم ولكي يصبحوا أعضاء مساهمين في المجتمع العالمي. على مدى السنوات 25 الماضية، وبالتعاون مع إدارة مركز التميز في التعليم ومدارس الحريري في بيروت وصيدا، نشارك كل عام في اختيار 2 من الطلاب الموهوبين في المدارس الثانوية. وشارك طلاب من مدارس الحريري في بيروت وصيدا في برنامج معهد العلوم البحثية في كامبريدج بالاشتراك مع معهد ماساتشوستس MIT للتكنولوجيا ومركز التميز في التعليم. إن مؤسسة الحريري هي أول منظمة عربية مشاركة في برنامج معهد البحوث العلمية، وهي الممثل الرسمي للمعهد في لبنان. رعت مؤسسة الحريري حتى الآن 62 طالباً للمشاركة في هذا البرنامج جنباً إلى جنب مع باقي الطلاب المشاركين، وكان لهذه التجربة أثر كبير في تغيير حياتهم، حيث اجتمع الطلاب الموهوبون من جميع أنحاء الولايات المتحدة والمجتمع الدولي من أجل تبادل الأفكار وإقامة علاقات دائمة وإجراء البحوث العلمية تحت إشراف أبرز أساتذة معهد MIT للتكنولوجيا وأكاديميين آخرين في بوسطن. أنا فخورة أيضاً بالقول بأن ابني نادر الموجود معنا اليوم كان متميزاً أيضاً ليكون أحد المشاركين في برنامج معهد العلوم البحثية في العام 1994. In closing, I would like to thank CEE for this recognition. I look forward to our continued partnership based on our shared commitment to education and the global community. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The Center appreciates your support, and we are happy to support the educational programs that you represent. I've been informed that there's actually a slight deviation from the planned closing remarks. I think she has it. I believe that there's a short deviation from the program at this point in time, and frankly, in the spirit of asking forgiveness rather than permission, excuse me, Joanne, we have a short presentation here that is not on the program.
Thank you for indulging an Epsilon change to the program. Just very, very quickly, on behalf of sort of all of the CE alumni, RSI, USABO, TEP, everything, Ms. D, Maite, you have given us all so much, and you don't often actually let us give back, so we have to sneak onto the program to say thank you to you. We have a small token of our appreciation from sort of the whole family of the CEE alumni. Thank you. You're the best.
Mrs. DeGennaro and Maite, would you please come up?
The two of you have been the heart and soul of this program for so many of us, and we just wanted to be able to express our appreciation and gratitude. Thank you so much for the past 35 years. We have some closing remarks now, returning back to the scheduled programming by our President, Joanne DeGennaro. Thank you. Mrs. DeGennaro.
I am not often without words, but most of you know I'm having all kinds of throat problems, so I'm not going to speak tonight. The weekend is going on beautifully. Our greatest gift to those that help at the center is to see all of you this evening, and also to thank Jay Lambert, Bob Inman, and Board of Trustees, members who over the years have done so much to make this organization what it is. It also, this weekend, reminded me, it's the Navy's birthday. Admiral would be so happy, and the keel was laid for the HR Rickover in May, and the executive officer called a couple of weeks ago and said, look, we know about the center and Admiral's work. We want to be present, or what can we do to be involved? And we were so happy yesterday at our opening, Lieutenant Commander Lewis M. Where is he? Is Lieutenant Commander here?
Over there.
Over there. Yes, thank you. They came, and we are so proud that the H.R. Rickover, the boat, will be christened in 2 years. Thank you for that, the executive officer of the H.R. Rickover. I can just tell you we've come a long way, and so many of you have shared the ups and downs with me. I had to laugh because not too long ago, one of the staff said, "You're getting just like Rickover." And I thought, oh my God. Because the Italian in me sometimes lets loose. But I can't tell you, through the difficult times of this past couple of months with difficulties with our office staff, they stood together, and this evening would not have been the beautiful one it was, and we have more to come. I'd like the staff at CEE to stand. Thank you so much. And indeed, when I'm given credit, I always think of some of the people that Admiral Inman spoke about and Jay Lambert. It has been my great fortune to stand on the shoulders of some of the greatest giants in U.S. history and to be rewarded in assisting other nations with their educational systems, because that was something very important to Admiral Rickover. And I can remember one of our first projects after I returned from Bulgaria and had noticed, was told that the Roma children didn't go to school in the winter because they didn't have shoes. And I said, you know what? The Rickoids, they'll buy pairs of shoes. And Michael, how many pairs of shoes did we deliver to the Roma children? 300 pairs. And so, you know, the journey at CEE, the ups and downs, and the magnificent accomplishments of all of you. You've shared it all with CEE. We've grown with you. We're so proud of you. And when I know the staff sitting here, and particularly myself sitting over there with Bahia, the greatest gift that you could give us, in her country she says the same, is to nurture you and help you progress to maximize your potential. And that's what we celebrate tonight. I'll close by saying many of you will remember there are approximately 8 students from the first program in 1984. Admiral and I used to go out to RSI every evening to meet with the students. And he's with us tonight. You remember how at each celebration, I showed the film, the 60 minutes that Diane Sawyer and I did with Admiral Rickover. Diane was a member of the board. He would not do any oral histories. Edward R. Murrow was the only journalist that he had respect for, but he liked Diane because he said she was good looking. It's a fitting closure to this evening as we celebrate. And each time I see it, I think, first of all, I go, God, Joanne, you're getting old. but it is something I know you enjoyed, and it's always a pleasure to show. 60 Minutes with Admiral Rickover, we made it in '84. And of course, he had his strokes and passed away in '86. But it's fun, and it gives you a taste of the acerbic and genius Admiral Rickover. I look forward to tomorrow's events with you and to listening to Admiral Inman speak with our luminaries and our alumni meeting, which will be most exciting. So students, enjoy this evening, enjoy the closing, and you know that our hearts and our love are with you.
He's the Navy's most famous and most cantankerous admiral. Hyman George Rickover, the father of the nuclear submarine, was censured last month for accepting gifts from a naval contractor, General Dynamics, over a 16-year period. The gifts totaled more than $67,000, but it seems that the company was wasting its money. Before he retired, Rickover declared war on General Dynamics. He accused them of trying to cheat the government. When we first broadcast this interview, the investigation of the Admiral and the gifts had just begun. But the 84-year-old Rickover was undaunted. He was much the same as he had been in 1957, the last time he submitted himself to an unrestricted personal interview. Combative, challenging, deliberately provocative.
No, I never have thought I was smart. I thought the people I dealt with were dumb, including you.
I'll tell you, to be called dumb by you is to be in very good company. Edward R. Murrow, for one, I think he said he asked you stupid questions.
Well, I told him the same. I told him he was asking stupid questions, and he agreed. He says, well, what question should I ask? And I told him.
You're looking for easy solutions. The trouble with you is you want easy answers, but you don't know the proper questions.
All right. You go ahead and phrase the question and then phrase the answer.
Perhaps the question should be, what should be the role of educated or intellectual people in the United States? Now, does that sound like a better question?
That's a fine question.
In an interview or on a ship, Hyman George Rickover likes to take command. Even at 84, the Admiral can inspect a submarine with the agility of an ensign. In Rickover's mind, these are his submarines. He designed the reactor, he trained the men. 1 out of 4 admirals commanding ships today was trained by Rickover. His nuclear empire became known as Rickover's Navy, and it ran solely Rickover's way. And you just thought that the rules of the Navy were silly.
I don't know, but I never read the rules. I prohibited it. We never had a book of Navy regulations in my office. I prohibited it. One time some guy brought it in, I told him to get the hell out and burn it.
Because you wanted them to think.
I wanted them to think. If they knew what their job was, they didn't need a book of regulations.
How can you run a Navy if everybody in it acts like you do? If everybody considers
I never told the others how to act. I acted my own way, my own genius.
But you know they said that you were unaccountable.
I was 100% accountable. If anything had ever gone wrong with a nuclear ship, to whom would they have pointed their finger at? What they mean is I would not do all the things they asked me to do. I did the things I thought was right.
But that's not working within the system. Isn't that what the military is about, working within the system?
My job was not to work within the system. My job was to get things done and make this country strong.
What he got done was this, the Nautilus, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, launched in 1952, the machine that would change military strategy forever. This submarine could stay underwater for months. Rickover stunned the world by building the Nautilus from scratch in only 5 years, leaving the Russians far behind. Many people called him the best engineer the Navy ever had. Today, there are 141 ships in the nuclear fleet. But once, there was just the man and his obsession, with science, not saluting, with engineering, not command. What drew you down into the body of the ship to learn about why the cranks cranked and the...
Well, for Christ's sake, what the hell is there about standing up and saluting and dressing up in the uniform? You can put dummies to do that job.
That's why you became an engineer?
Well, I was in the Navy, and I could do more, and I could learn more. I couldn't see myself just standing off to the deck watches and saluting and all that nonsense.
But why did you work
I was
so
getting
hard?
paid for it.
No, why did you work
I would have worked hard at any job. No job I ever undertook that I didn't work hard on.
Why? Why did it all matter
Because
to
that's
you
what
so
being a
much?
human being is, to do the best you can under any circumstances.
What is at the heart of leadership? Is it in personality, charisma?
No. For example, I have the charisma of a chipmunk. So what the hell difference does that make?
It was certainly not his personality that won Rickover 3 Distinguished Service Medals. And to celebrate the Nautilus, a ticker tape parade through the streets of New York. A long way from the tiny town in Russian-occupied Poland where Rickover was born, the son of a tailor. A long way for the boy who landed at Ellis Island at the age of 6 and grew up in a ghetto in Chicago and won an appointment to the Naval Academy at Annapolis. He was terrified he wouldn't make it. He became the class grind. Did you ever go out on dates?
No.
Did you ever go to dances?
No.
Did you ever go to the movies?
On Saturday night occasionally, I studied. Girls didn't, I was so busy trying to get by, stay alive, that I didn't worry about girls. You can get along without girls. Yeah. Don't wink at me.
Was it a very snobbish atmosphere?
No. Sure, everybody got hazing there at that time, and I got probably somewhat more than the average. So what? I was mature.
But why did you get more than other people, you think?
Because I was Jewish. They didn't have any. Very rare for a Jew to go to the Naval Academy. You know, an interesting thing that later on, many years later, when I had high rank in the Navy, one or two of those, I was going to use the word bastard, came around and asked me for favors for them. Those who had treated me that way, I wouldn't do it.
You remembered them?
Of course. And the most pleasant thing was in becoming an officer and going to a ship and seeing the mature adult attitude in which one was treated as compared to that lousy boys' school.
Today, that lousy boys' school has a science building named for Rickover. Inside, models of his submarines and the testing devices he invented. Rickover's science and a Rickover superstition, it's supposed to be good luck to rub his nose, the one on the statue. And how about the Rickover stories? The admirals who run the Naval Academy remember being grilled by Rickover when they applied for admission to his nuclear sub-school.
One young man there came in with long hair, and you told him he had to choose between the long hair and the program. And he walked out and said, my girlfriend likes this ponytail.
Fine. That was the end. The little son of a bitch should have got them, cut it all off and gotten a wig.
I heard that you had people come in and you sat them down in chairs in which some of the legs were shorter than the others.
No, not only two. I saw 6 inches from the
just
front,
two.
only two. And it was difficult because it was a shiny chair and they kept on sliding off. So they had to maintain their wits about them while they were asked these questions while they were sliding off the chair.
And what about those that you brought in and made stand in the broom closet?
Well, they came in, they gave stupid answers, so I thought I'd give them a chance to think. I'd put them in there for a couple hours, 3 hours, and I gave them plenty of time to think.
But what were you trying to do with these young men who came into
I was trying to draw out of them what they had potentially in them.
A young ensign from Georgia eluded the broom closet but couldn't escape Rickover's demand for excellence. Did you hate him a little?
There were a few times, yeah, when I hated him. Because he demanded more from me than I thought I could deliver.
James Earl Carter hated him, revered him, and became his commander-in-chief. Is anyone his boss?
I never really felt like his boss, although he would say that I was. I'm not sure that he ever acknowledged it really deep down in his heart.
Carter and 4 other presidents would intervene to keep Rickover on active duty 20 years past his retirement date. The Navy was not pleased. It had been trying to retire Rickover as far back as the year he launched the Nautilus. His fellow officers were tired of his abrasiveness and contempt for regulations. But Rickover had taken care to build alliances in the White House and on Capitol Hill.
In a public relations tour de force, he cultivated members of Congress by asking their wives to sign the keels of his submarines and by turning his launches into lavish photo opportunities for his congressional supporters. He valued their protection. They valued his blunt testimony.
What do you think is the prospect then for nuclear war?
Well, I think we'll probably destroy ourselves. So what difference will it make? Some new species will come up that might be wiser than we are. I do not believe in divine intercession. In the eyes of the Lord, we are not the most important thing in the universe.
The Reagan administration finally forced Rickover to retire in 1982. Nearly everyone said he was too old. But after 64 years of service, he didn't even receive the courtesy of a call.
My wife told me it's on the radio that you're fired. That's how I found out about it. Yeah. That's how the Navy notified me, my wife hearing it on TV.
Were you surprised when the Reagan administration told him goodbye?
No, because the defense contractors were out to get Rickover for a long time. He was an embarrassment to them, and he was part of a one-man watchdog.
There was over $1 billion worth of claims by shipbuilders, which I thought were false, and I fought it. Now, it's quite a complete coincidence, but within a month or 2 months after I left, most of that money was given to the shipbuilders. Of course, that's a coincidence.
The shipbuilders did hate him because he refused to pay them and because he demanded perfection. He said they didn't know ships from horse droppings. And now Rickover has been charged with taking presents from the shipbuilders. A former executive from one contractor, General Dynamics, was the first to reveal that Rickover had been given gifts. A lot of them, some of them expensive.
Oh, they gave me little plaques. They gave me all kinds. One time, I think, I even got a small diamond from the time I was married. But the question that so did others. I don't deny it, but the question that ought to be asked is, did I ever favor General Dynamics or any other contractor? The question is whether it influenced you.
But how can an American citizen know whether it influenced you or not?
I didn't think about the views of the American citizen. I was governed by my own thoughts.
In fact, Rickover requested a lot of the gifts so he could give them to members of Congress who supported his subs. Expensive gifts and not just the keychains he picked up off his desk.
Why do you think this has come out now?
On the kind of
General
claims,
Dynamics?
I accused them of false claims.
General Dynamics.
General Dynamics, I always stuck to it.
And you think this is just a little revenge they're taking on you?
I don't care. They're not taking any revenge on me. I have my own conscience. Do you think I was crooked when I was in office? Do you think the public thinks so? Because I get things like.
But do you worry that at the end of this long career that something like this is raised and your ethics are questioned in the press?
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. I think God knows what I did. And I don't care what the contractors or you think.
What Rickover admits to caring about is American education. Over the years, he has given $100,000 of his own money to educational projects. And now he's raised some $200,000 for a foundation of his own, the Rickover Science Institute, which brings 60 gifted students to Washington each summer for intensive study.
What is it that you think the gifted children most need that they're not getting in the school
They need
system?
the exercise of their brains. They need not to be kept in apathy, not to let their parents run around and have a good time. The primary function of parents in this world is to raise their children to the best of their ability. They're not doing it.
Okay, well, I agree with you in that we need to invest more money.
Well, thank you very much.
And sometimes the educator can't resist being the admiral again.
And they seem to be
You
increasing.
better talk up because the audience is not hearing what you're saying. Start all over again and talk up. Yeah, use all your equipment. Come on.
If Rickover is hard on parents and kids, he's also hard on an institution he fathered, civilian nuclear power. This is the plant at 3 Mile Island. Rickover built the first civilian nuclear plant. He says nuclear energy will be necessary for the future because Americans are squandering their resources. But he worries that the plant technicians are not being properly supervised, and he worries where the nuclear discovery will lead.
One of the most remarkable things that he ever told me was when we were together on the submarine, and he said that he wished that a nuclear explosive had never been evolved. And then he said, I wish that nuclear power had never been discovered. And I said, Admiral, this is your life. He said, I would forego all the accomplishments of my life, and I would be willing to forego all the advantages of nuclear power to propel ships, for medical research, and for every other purpose of generating electric power, if we could have avoided the evolution of atomic explosives.
Who's the biggest threat in the use of nuclear weapons? Is it the Russians?
It's always somebody else. Of course. But you might think maybe it's the fault of both of us. Where do I sign? Here? Right, sir. Why don't you write your initial? People will always remember how you look. They'll never forget.
You won't even accept the bureaucracy of signing your name out.
I never have. Even in the military, I'll do that.
You don't agree with the rule?
I agree. Any rule that I like, I agree with.
Rickover walks 4 miles a day and works 11 hours, arranging fundraisers and speeches. Here with the director of his foundation, Joanne DeGennaro. He's also working on a book, a kind of summation. The text will be taken from these notebooks, 100 volumes of thoughts and ideas Rickover has written and collected through his lifetime.
That's not a good one. It says, Dean Acheson said.
And among the volumes, a glimpse of the private Rickover, a man few people other than his second wife, Eleanor, know. The love letters he wrote to his first wife 50 years ago.
This is, you were on a submarine.
Yeah, what I
And you were, read this to me. This is so
I'll
terrific.
read it to you. Forgive me for not writing more. I am so tired. Above all, though, there is the clear thought of you and of my love. Your vision is ever fresh, smiling and lovely. Your lightness and alertness contrasts with my drowsiness. Good night. I shall fall asleep with thoughts of you as my lullaby. Is that a good quote?
The letters his first wife wrote back are gone. Rickover says he burned them in despair the night she died.
Do you think there's an afterlife?
I don't know. I've never talked with any of the people there, and I don't know. Never met any yet.
You don't think it likely there's a heaven and a hell?
I don't give any thought to that. I think you make your heaven and hell right on this earth. You should act on this earth as if it were heaven.
A footnote on those gifts that got the Admiral in such trouble. The Secretary of the Navy, John Lehman, said that the censure of Rickover should not overshadow his many achievements. It was just that a Navy Admiral should be held to a higher standard. In response, Rickover issued a public rebuttal of the charges. He has also called Secretary Lehman one of the biggest fools the Navy ever had.
Well, quite a legacy we have as the Center for Excellence in Education. We thank you for joining us this evening for this wonderful celebration. We are proud to carry on the legacy of excellence that originated with the Admiral and has been carried on by the faithful work of Joanne DeGennaro and the board and the center for these years. We hope you enjoyed the evening, enjoy the rest of the evening, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a good night.